topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, this is a big show today. We have extended this show out on a national basis because it's so important. This is our tax relief show. We've got such a great attorney. He's been with us for several years. So for the next 25 minutes, we're going to be talking about negotiating with the IRS, why you shouldn't do it yourself, why you should have a professional like our great, unbelievable expert, Kevin Benjamin with Benjamin Legal Services. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Are we all set now?
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, we're doing the tax show first. Right?
We're doing our tax law show first because it's going to go out throughout the country. And first of all, I can already tell we've got so many new listeners. People are already writing that they found the show because we started promoting the show several days ago. And I want you to tell people about your firm.
Okay. Noble Tax Relief is I'm a lawyer by trade, work out of Chicago, licensed in various states and federal jurisdictions and the U.S. tax court and other federal courts. And basically, we started Noble Tax Relief because that's solely dedicated to IRS tax resolution. And it looks like, did you lose me there? My screen froze. Hello?
Hello. Yes, we have you.
Yeah, so looks like my screen froze.
Rebel?
We can still hear you, Kevin. The screen is a little frozen, but move your mouse.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Okay. So Noble Tax Relief is solely dedicated to IRS tax resolution, helping businesses and individuals resolve tax issues with the IRS.
I got to tell you, and we've talked about this so many times before, there are so many people out there who have a problem with the IRS. And they think that by throwing that envelope into the drawer that it's going to go away. You look, see, Kevin's laughing because he sees this every day. And these people are so good at collections. You don't want to go in there by yourself. I am telling you, that's why it's so important with this show to have someone like Kevin. Kevin, let's start off the show what are some of the misconceptions that people have when it comes to the IRS?
Well, they have a lot of misconceptions. First of all, people don't always believe the IRS is even the one calling them. Basically, that they won't seize their assets. The IRS will immediately seize my assets if I owe taxes, people always say, right? The IRS typically does not seize property rights. They first send notices and offer payment options before resorting to liens and levies. So everyone thinks just because you owe the IRS money, that immediately what's going to happen is you're going to get your assets seized or levied. There is a due process. There's a procedure for it. So it's a misconception. Now, they will do it eventually. I mean, I just got a phone call an hour ago. Somebody mentioned They owe some money, 400,000 plus for some trust taxes, etc. They had this thing called a summons, and well, that means lawsuit to me. So I look in federal court, and I just let her know she's being sued in federal court by the IRS. And she had no idea. And there's a rule to show cause on her, and it's serious. I can take care of it for her, but
why didn't she know, Kevin? How come she didn't
she
know?
Probably didn't open the mail.
Okay.
Or when they served her, they may have served her by mail because it's federal court. I'm doing one in Wisconsin right now, resolving a tax issue in federal court, and it's actually going pretty well. But when you don't show up in court, they do a rule to show cause on you why you should not be held in contempt of court. And that's different than just owing the taxes, because they can come and arrest you for that. They give you a body attachment, right? Also, you may get referred to the criminal division if you don't answer the subpoena, right? There's a subpoena and there's a summons, there's questions. You can't just ignore them, right? So one of the common misconceptions is they just come after you and garnish you. No, they give you notice and due process, and they're usually not suing you. But that's what they do, right? Ultimately, if you don't respond, yeah, they'll lien you. They put a notice of federal tax lien, or they'll levy your assets, garnish your wages. A levy is when they're taking money. The federal tax lien is just a lien on all your property. So people have notice of that. It's like a secured interest. So that's one misconception. Another one is people think that ignoring the IRS letters will make the problem go away.
Oh.
No. Okay, as we were just talking about, the IRS does not forget about unpaid taxes.
No, they don't.
And ignoring these notices, they could lead to penalties, taxes, and interest, levies, the whole thing. I mentioned that one example that maybe they get referred to the criminal division, because right now that one's not. I checked right before the show started. But another misconception is people think I can go to jail just for owing taxes. You don't get put in jail just for owing taxes. Criminal charges are usually for tax fraud, evasion, willful failure to file. I had a case with a guy who owned a business, and he says it's all a mistake. Hired me. It's only like $20,000 or $30,000. Well, he got involved in one of the scams. He got scammed actually, and but the IRS didn't know because he was ignoring the notices. So when I took over and I put it in my power of attorney, I said, I got bad news. You're actually in the criminal division. So, of course, he was freaking out and blah, blah, blah. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm like, well, that's not how it works. I got to show that. And I did. The IRS, he got scammed. Okay. One of those employee retention credit stuff. And, some guys were, really good salespeople taking them. So, we got him out of the criminal thing and got that, under control. But had he not come to me, they would have come after him because they didn't know. Right. So you don't go to jail just for owing taxes, but it's just like on a regular collection issue, non-IRS. Someone sues you, gets a judgment. Well, getting a judgment and getting the money are two separate things, right? So then around here, at least, they do what's called a citation to discover assets. So it's when you go to court, you got to tell them, where's all your assets, show me your tax returns, financials, and people don't show up. They get a rule to show cause, body attachment. And people think, I'm getting arrested because I owe money. You're not getting arrested because you owe money. You got arrested because you didn't go to court and you're in contempt of court. So same thing with the IRS. That's another common misconception. Also, another misconception is people think the IRS has an unlimited time to collect on the taxes. And they don't. Okay. 10 years. It was 10-year statute of limitations to collect most of the tax debts, starting from the date of assessment. However, there's things called tolling events, like offers and compromises, or maybe you filed bankruptcy or some other things. So sometimes it's not a straight line for that, right? I had a case yesterday. Someone's coming in. We're going to file. Actually, this was going to be a bankruptcy, a Chapter 13. But they're telling me they were talking to some tax person. I don't know if it's true or not. That some of this tax money would expire, meaning the expiration date, the C said, collection statute expiration date would expire. Some of it in April and some of it in June. Well, I looked at his case. He's got to file a case for a different reason, not for the taxes. About be resolved also, but he was filing for a different reason. But we can get him past June. So I was just pulling the tax transcripts this morning. I haven't looked at them yet. I want to verify the deadlines because, everything is it's like a chess game. When do you file? If you're filing a bankruptcy or even a lawsuit, when do you file it? What's the plan? If you're resolving IRS tax issues, it's the same thing. If I can get rid of $10,000 or $20,000 of the 40 in this guy's case, right? By getting this past June, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, if I file a case, that's told, and he'd be paying that all in the Chapter 13. But again, he's got to file for a different reason, but he doesn't have to file by June. So that's why you have a lawyer, and this is a Illinois case. So that's why you have advisors looking at all kinds of different things. So those things don't happen. Also, people think filing for bankruptcy will erase your tax debts. Sometimes taxes are discharged in bankruptcy, but usually they're not. There's exceptions. That's why you got to have either an attorney or CPA or an enrolled agent, someone who concentrates in IRS tax resolution, looking into this for you, so you could see when and if taxes are dischargeable. So somebody may come in and say, hey, I owe $100,000. Well, they do, right? But maybe it's over 2 years, 4 years, 7 years. You know what I'm saying? So you got to analyze what is the CSED, collection statute expiration date on each tax year, and what are the bankruptcy discharge dates on each tax year to see if it could be dischargeable in bankruptcy and when. Not that you want to file bankruptcy, but what are your option or the options, right? Other people understand about, they hear all these misconceptions on the TV, right? About the settling for pennies on the dollar, like it's automatic.
Yes.
Like you can negotiate any amount with the IRS. Well, there's offer and compromise, there's installment agreements. Sure, not everyone qualifies for every program, but the IRS wants to resolve the tax debt, right? They want to resolve the tax debt for what's called the reasonable collection number, right? Reasonable collection potential. And that's how you negotiate. So the reasonable collection potential, the RCP, that's a set number, right? Whether that's going to be an installment agreement or a offer and compromise. So let's say it's 10,000. If you're 100,000, well, and if it winds up being an offer and compromise, you sell it for 10 cents on the dollar. If it's 20,000, it's 50 on the dollar, right? So it's still 10 grand. So that's a little misconception. They will negotiate any amount, right? But it's not automatic. And that's the other misconception. The IRS must accept a payment plan if you offer one. No, they don't. Okay. They can be rejected all the time, and most offer and compromises are rejected because most people don't qualify for an offer and compromise. They just get scammed by these national call center firms telling you settle for pennies on the dollar, just pay you pay your fee. You're not going to get you got to qualify for an offer and compromise. And you need a tax professional who concentrates in tax resolution to resolve and to even entertain what your options are, review your whole situation to see what's going on and how maybe you can get to an offer and compromise, or what could be negotiated and what can't. So they don't have to accept anything. They want to work it out with you, but you don't qualify for everything all the time. Okay, so that's one. People think if you don't file taxes, the IRS isn't going to know about it. Yeah, they're going to know about it. Maybe not tomorrow, but they're going to know about it. And as far as hiding money or assets, another genius move, misconceptions. The IRS is the government. They got extensive tools, bank reporting requirements, disclosure laws. Trying to hide assets from the IRS is not a good idea. It's not going to happen. And if you think you're going to go abroad when you retire, they're going to find you there as well. So,
Wow.
these are some of the misconceptions.
Kevin, we just got, speaking of scams, a viewer who's actually watching right now wants to know, what are the latest scams that are out there? Have you heard of any?
Oh yeah, a lot of the one I was just talking about was the employee retention credit scam, right? I get email people, letters, hey, you qualify for self-employed from the COVID thing. No, you don't. Okay. Or there's scams right now. There's some scams out there right now that they're going to help you set up an account with the IRS. Well, you can go to irs.gov and you have your ID, irs.id me account set up in 30 seconds yourself. It's go online. You know what I'm saying? So you don't need that. Or people think the IRS is, by the way, they're not calling you on the phone. They're sending you letters. Okay. So don't be, someone calls on the phone and says, hey, I'm the IRS and you got to pay me right now. We're coming to arrest you, and you got to do it.
Do they email?
No, sometimes people call. I get phone calls from clients even. No, it's the IRS. It's not the IRS. They're not calling you, telling you to be arrested if you don't pay them right now. And by the way, you want to pay by gift cards. I mean, come on. Yeah, I mean, be smart, So, there's a lot of confusion with the IRS. But, of course, like before the Trump administration just came in, the previous administration, they passed this inflationary, they call it the Inflationary Recovery Act, whatever it was. They gave $80 billion to the IRS to beef them up. Now Trump's trying to tear them down, and they don't know who's getting fired, who's not getting fired. I'm negotiating right now with some revenue officers. If they're going to be around next week when I'm talking to them.
Are they worried about their jobs?
Yeah, and they should be, because you don't know what's going on, because they're forcing a lot of people. I mean, people get tired of it. So now you're going to have less qualified people with the IRS, and then some of the senior ones are just, now they have the DOGE, whatever, Department of Government Efficiency, trying to get people out. Mostly the higher salary ones; those are more experienced ones, And they have different divisions, like they have divisions for small business or employment or international. Some of those audits, and they call them IRS employees, they call them engineers, but they're really like professionals who specialize in how to catch these high net companies into millions and billions of dollars. So if they're making $100,000 or $200,000, so what? The return on the investment is huge. So what's happening with that? Who knows? You hear rumors that he's trying to shut down the IRS. That's never going to happen. But downsize them, sure. But
Kevin, you would think with all you hear about is 85,000 new agents have been hired. How do people still think that they're not going to get caught?
Yeah, people do. Well, people believe what they want to believe, and whatever the schemer tells them. I mean, I was just on the phone before this call with a potential Chapter 11 client. Called me in December. I told him what to do. Doesn't hire me. Waste money on somebody else. Calls me 2 weeks ago. Now you need me. I told you it wasn't going to work. Yeah. Then now he's like hemming and hawing again. I'm like, dude, you're calling me. Okay. I'm not talking you into this, right? This is what you need to do. My advice, but do it or don't do it. Well, this guy said, wait, the guy that you just told me didn't do the job right, but they told you something else, and how'd that work out? You know what I'm saying? It's amazing, Or my neighbor said, but no, they said you could get a free house,
right.
They went to some seminar or whatever, or went on Google. Like, it's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not, my job is what are people's options, I'm even doing a Chapter 11 for somebody or 13. I'm only licensed in some states and jurisdictions for that, but I still analyze it for a tax client anywhere in the country. And as for tax resolution, I'm in the U.S. tax court. I'm a federal lawyer. That's federal law. I can handle the IRS situation for you anywhere, attorney, CPA, or enrolled agent. So that's not a problem. But I can also give you other advice. So if my other advice was to do a case, Chapter 11, for example, or something, I could refer you to somebody in a different state if I wasn't able to do it there. But I can still analyze it's still federal law, but I can still analyze the whole thing for you. So that's what I'm talking about.
It's important that people understand, especially because we're talking federal taxes here, that, and we have now that we're going national with your tax relief show. If you're in Texas, you can give Kevin a call. He can handle your case, right, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's federal law. I mean, IRS, I can handle. If you needed a bankruptcy, or I could still analyze the taxes for dischargeability, that kind of stuff. If I couldn't do it, I belong to national groups and organizations I could have someone for you in 5 minutes, probably local to talk to you if I couldn't do it. But I could actually file cases and talking about non-IRS stuff in a lot of federal jurisdictions in several different states. So I'm licensed in a lot of jurisdictions.
And Kevin, you've got many ways to help a client. One way might not work for them. People don't realize that every situation is different. It's not a cookie cutter, but you've got many ways that you can help a client when they're getting into trouble with the IRS. They just have to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's not rocket science as far as what different options are. There's offer and compromise. There's installment agreements. There's what's called currently non-collectible status, which means that maybe they're back off for up to 2 years, which more people qualify for that than you think. There's hardships. They call it effective tax administration. But now those are the basic, right? The main two are offer and compromise or installment agreement. But even then, there's sub-programs. Like there's installment agreement, there's partial pay installment agreements, there's offer and compromises. Also, where are you? Are you in what's called the ACS, the automatic collection system? Are you with the revenue agent or revenue officer? Are you in the criminal division? How much do you owe? 25, 50, 500, a million. So there's different levels of where they would put you. And also, sometimes they have streamlined programs, easier to do a deal, less documentation, sometimes no documentation. Then the more you owe, or the more complicated you are, the more documentation you need, which is fine too. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But also, sometimes an individual may have, maybe they owe $50,000 and, you pay $5 and get them under 50 and get them into an easier program. So, there's ways to even adjust where you are depending on everyone's situation. Not everyone can just simply, always do that. But that's my job. What are your options? If we're going to negotiate, are we negotiating in this tier or this tier, or can I get to the different tier before we, start negotiating? Also, you get a letter of notice of federal tax lien or intent to levy. Like I got one for a client just the other day, right? And I just let them know we have till March 20th, 30 days. If I can't make a deal with the IRS, which I'm talking to them again on Thursday, we have the right to appeal, right? It's called a collection due process appeal. There's different kinds of appeals, right? But that'll also stop a levy. And then also, you can negotiate. Sometimes you talk to the manager, maybe a regional person. If you do the appeals, you talk to the appeals staff, right? Or the appeals agent. But also, you can go to the tax court. I belong to the U.S. tax court. I can represent anybody before the U.S. tax court. And not that everyone wants to go there, and usually you don't, but you can, right? So you can have a hearing. And sometimes it's easier to settle or work it out on an appeal than it is actually with the initial staff you're talking to. There's a lot of them are a lot more seasoned and understand different things. So it's
Kevin, tell people we've come to the end of this first segment. Tell people how they can reach you.
Well, for Noble Tax Relief, it's 312-489-8000, 312-489-8000, or toll free at 800-550-0733. NobleTaxRelief.com, info@NobleTaxRelief.com. If it's easy BenjaminLaw.com is my law firm in Chicago. If you want to contact me there, that's fine also. Attorneys, plural, at BenjaminLaw.com. You can get me either way, but depending on what state you're in, it's still me doing it. I'm still with the IRS. Have my
We're going to take a short break. If you're in the Illinois area, please stay by. We're going to be right back. Thank you, Kevin. Hold on. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
Hey, welcome, Illinois. We're glad to be with you today. This is the Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, listen, we know it's tough out there financially. It's getting tougher and tougher to live nowadays. Hopefully those will change, but for right now, it is what it is. And we know that there's a lot of people out there that are considering bankruptcy. And we have one of the finest bankruptcy attorneys in the state of Illinois. And this is going to be a great show. Hopefully, we can answer a lot of your questions today. Let me introduce you to. He's been with us now for several years now. We're so lucky to have him. He has a practice in the Chicago area, but this show we actually air the show throughout the state of Illinois, and he can handle your case if you're in the state of Illinois. Let's welcome attorney Kevin Benjamin. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, thank you, Steve. I
Yes,
appreciate
we just got through doing our national show for tax relief, and we're going to be talking now about bankruptcy. Kevin, is it do you see more people filing for bankruptcy now? Are things leveling off, or maybe are things getting any better?
Oh no, it's increasing. I mean, during COVID, it was non-existent, and for like 2 or 3 years, it was really slow. People had money, lawsuits are stopped, garnishments are stopped, foreclosures are stopped. So then, when that got back to happening, it took a while for people to get in trouble again. But since last year, it's picking up. In the last year, going into this year, a lot more foreclosures, a lot more garnishments, and getting caught repos, cars. I mean, yeah. So, and if you look at the news, we're talking about possible recession.
Yes.
Inflation's been there for a couple of years. Rents are crazy. And Chicago property taxes. I mean, people are just getting squeezed left and right. Groceries. It's tough. It's tough out there. So yeah, that's a lot of activity right now.
And I don't like to get political on this show, but I just saw where Canada is going to raise prices by 25%. The people who they supply electricity to in New York, Minnesota, I believe in New Jersey, and God, how much more can we take? But I got to tell you, we're so glad that we have your firm because I think trust is so important. And what we've done is we've found one of the finest bankruptcy attorneys in the state of Illinois. But Kevin, the question, it's so amazing because these chapter 11, 7, 13 have all been around for a long time. People still don't know what each one means. Most of the letters we get for your show is ask Kevin what is chapter 7, 11, and 13, and there's some other ones. So why don't you explain that first?
Yeah, happy to do so. That's a common question, and people get confused. I have people calling me for consultation. Yeah, I need a chapter, but it's,
Yes.
Chapter 11, but they really mean 7 or
Right.
So because chapter 11 is a lot more labor intensive. Someone says chapter 11, and I start talking, I'm like, oh, you meant 7. Okay. Now there are people who file. I do get chapter 11 clients, but people don't know 13, 7, 9. So chapter 9 is for governments when the government files bankruptcy. Chapter 12 is for farmers if a farmer files bankruptcy.
I can't believe there's one for farmers.
Chapter 15 is like cross borders or international. Chapter 11 is usually a corporation restructuring where they stay in business. Though there's a corporate liquidation plan you can file also, but it's usually a corporation restructuring debt. However, an individual can file a Chapter 11, and sometimes they have to. But generally speaking, the consumer side is usually Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is like a court-ordered bill consolidation, a personal restructuring of debt, the way a corporation restructures, only it's simplified, less expensive, a lot easier, okay? A lot more affordable, more streamlined, okay? So you keep all your assets, keep everything. You have up to 5 years to pay back. There are certain debt limits, whether it's secured or unsecured, which is ridiculous, which they changed during COVID, but then it's sunsetted because one senator didn't vote to extend it. It's just stupid. Anyway, so then Chapter 7 is a straight bankruptcy, get out of debt. But some debts aren't discharged. For example, debts incurred by fraud, child support, alimony, sometimes taxes, sometimes student loans, but sometimes previously to this year, the Department of Justice was not fighting a lot of adversarial proceedings to discharge student loans. Now that's changed. So they're kind of revamping now how the Trump administration is going to handle this. So the last couple of years was a lot easier for student loans. But also, like on secured debt, like a car or a house or even real estate, you have the option of keeping it and paying for it or giving it back and owe nothing. You don't get a free car, right? You can get the car back, right? But you got to pay for it. Now, you may be able to restructure the payment on that, depending on if it's bought or more than 910 days ago or for personal use, stuff like that. That's why you have a lawyer. But you can keep it. Same thing on a house. They have this anti-modification provision on your house to stop you from restructuring that. They changed that in 2005 as a gift to the banking lobby. But it's also acceptance of that where you can do it. But also if it's not your primary residence, you can't. So you still restructure that in bankruptcy, even if you're underwater, for example. I'm saying, we do your mortgages. Chapter 11, getting back to Chapter 11, there's your regular Chapter 11. Starting in February of 2020, they have what's called a subchapter 5, Chapter 11, which is small businesses, a little more streamlined. There's a sub 5 trustee to try to get a plan approved to try to help you out. Sometimes it's beneficial to do that. They have a small business Chapter 11. They have a single asset real estate Chapter 11. So
there's different types of Chapter 11s?
Chapter 11. And then
wow.
I have some clients right now that, you don't always qualify for all of them, right? But sometimes, like, I'm doing the regular or we're doing the sub 5, there's U.S. quarterly fees in a regular, but none in the sub 5, but there's a Chapter 5 trustee. What's the particular situation where I could try to give my legal opinion on what's more streamlined, beneficial, and affordable to get a plan confirmed. So that's why you have a lawyer.
Does Chapter 11, so it doesn't wipe out all debt?
Chapter 11 is a corporate restructuring or individual restructuring, right? So you can discharge some debts in there, right? But the reason for Chapter 11 is because you're trying to pay some people back.
It buys you time, doesn't it?
Like in a Chapter 13, for example, it's like a 13, but for a company or more complicated person. Like in Chapter 13, there's no combination of Chapter 7 and 13, except that there is. And it's called Chapter 13. So in Chapter 13, you can pay some creditors in full and some pennies on the dollar. It depends on what they call the liquidation analysis, the Chapter 13 means test, what type of creditor it is. So sometimes, like I have a case right now, a lot of cases, but I have someone that they really should be in a 7, right? Except that they're behind on their mortgage, right? Sorry, my lights just went out. Hello. So anyway, they should be in Chapter 7. There you go. Sorry. They should be in Chapter 7, except they're behind the mortgage, and I need a 13 to stop the mortgage. But now we're paying everyone else pennies on the dollar, so it's kind of like doing both. There's no thing called a Chapter 20, except that there is, where sometimes you do a Chapter 7 first, eliminate your unsecured debt. Now you do a Chapter 13 on the secured debt, depending on your situation. So, and there's bankruptcy planning, there's bankruptcy exemption planning, pre-filing planning. It's not just filling out forms. Okay, I have a case I'm winding down right now. Person was pro se, had a non-attorney. It's just filling out forms. Well, the U.S. attorney went after her. The 7 trustee went after her, and other lawyers they dropped the case. And I'm resolving it for her, but there was a lot of problems. And also, there's bankruptcy fraud. It's, $250,000 fine, 5 years in prison. So, not that happens all the time, but it does actually. So,
Is there a downside of Chapter 11, Kevin?
Well, no. I mean, like, it's not fun. I mean, I had this conversation with someone this morning. I've been talking to for a week. They have a personal situation, a business situation, an IRS situation for the business, an IRS situation for personal. But some of the business taxes, over 300 grand, is, what they call the trust fund recovery, right? So you're personally liable for that. So there's also some lawsuits going on. So there's a lot going on. So then you're analyzing the Chapter 7 there's assets, what can a creditor do? What are the exemptions? What are the holes in the thing? Or can we just resolve it in the Chapter 11 to protect, if the business is paying back the taxes, then the IRS is fine. If the business is handling the lawsuit that the person's personally liable for, but it's really a business debt, we could restructure the company. So she even asks the same question: what's the downside? Well, there's no downside. I mean, you're only doing it because you have to. You're in state court right now, paying a lawyer fees. You're losing, right? They're not doing anything because they can't. I could stop the lawsuit with Chapter 11. There's assets available. They're trying to not acknowledge in the state court that's property of the Chapter 11 estate. We're now in charge. I'm saying there's powers and there's tools. So and you're restructuring on Chapter 11. So there's no downside because you're only going to do it if you need to do it. You're not doing it for fun. You know what I'm saying? The upside is you come out as a reorganized debtor. You're also a debtor in possession unless you're removed which is rear. I'm saying, so you're still running the business, right? But you could cancel contracts. You could get rid of obligations, restructure things. That's what it is. It's a plan. A confirmed plan is simply how you're paying your debt again. Okay. And also you're filing financial reports. So the creditors see money in, money out. So is the U.S. trustee. Now they have a better understanding of what you could afford or not. Like in my example this morning, I was telling when you're in state court, your lawyer is negotiating verbally. The creditor has no idea until they do discovery, which is take months and be very expensive. But in Chapter 11, you're trying to get a plan approved by votes. So you're actually working with the creditors to restructure your debt, and you're showing them the fine. Here's why I can't. We have money coming in. You know what I'm saying? But I can't pay everyone tomorrow, and that's all it is. Sometimes there's high interest. Or this is just astronomical payments and creditors, what's their priority? You know what I'm saying?
You're right.
So, I mean, not only getting paid, but what are they secured? Are they unsecured? Are they unsecured priority debt? There's different classes of creditors. So they want to know what order they'd be paid in. A Chapter 11 plan is a lot more complex than a Chapter 13 plan. So all those details are in a customized Chapter 11 plan. And then you're working with the creditor saying, here's why it's good for you. Or here's, or sometimes you can make deals on the plan. We can do financials, every 6 months. And maybe if this is better, we can do a percentage, bump or whatever, because it's got to work for everybody.
Right.
Because, you got to be able to run your business. Right. But you can't be like, going out and just wasting money on the business, like as your personal piggy bank, which is how some people get in trouble. So the reports and the financials you're submitting every month to the court, basically, and the trustee, it's just showing what you're doing. If the Chapter 11 debtor is just pissing money away, I'm gonna get a phone call from their lawyer to say, "What are you doing?" Or even creditors gonna say, "Well, why am I taking a plan? You're just pissing money away. You can't do." Because also you may have maybe you have real estate, or maybe it's a rental property, a 20-unit building or several, right? So now maybe there's some mortgage issues. They're called due, they're foreclosure, behind. So you're doing Chapter 11, right? And there's a thing called cash collateral. So those rents, when you get a mortgage, they have a secured interest in those rents. That's their cash collateral. You can't just take that and do what you want with it, even in Chapter 11. So because it's their cash collateral. But so you have cash collateral motions and orders and budgets every month, every two, to work out with the creditor saying, here's how much money's coming in, And you got to pay insurance, right? We got to pay the property taxes, right? Got to pay property manager. And the creditors, I mean, they're going to agree on what's being paid, but taking a little profit, no. You know what I'm saying? So the creditors are agreeing on the cash collateral. Everyone's watching it, including the mortgage payment. That comes from there too. That goes to the bank. So, and it's also depending if you have equity or not. There's adequate protection or not. In Chapter 11, sometimes you're not making a payment until the plan's confirmed. In Chapter 13, you make a plan payment that you propose, and you start paying 30 days later. In Chapter 11, you don't pay plan payments until the plan's confirmed. That could be 6 months, a year, sometimes more. You may pay adequate protection payments, depending if it's secured or not. That's smaller, it shows some good faith, but you get a lot of breathing room.
How do they decide who gets paid first, Kevin?
Who's they? I mean, ultimately, you propose a plan and you want to get votes, and if the votes are enough, then I guess we all, the creditors and the debtor, agree. Otherwise, the short answer is why it's proposed. It's us working with the debtor. Now we're talking like let's say we do a regular Chapter 11. You have 120 days to file a plan. Doesn't mean you have to wait that long. Sometimes it's longer. Motion to extend. But then why? We're talking to the creditor. Here's what's happening, or claim didn't come in, whatever, first, whatever. But you're making progress, right? So you're talking to the creditors, and you have an idea of what you could do. So maybe maybe sometimes it's not going anywhere. You just put it on paper, and you file your plan, and people are going to call you and react to the plan, right? You have to do what's called a disclosure statement, which is a detailed background and details of how a creditor could have the proper information to decide to vote on the plan or not, right? So the debtor submits the plan. Well, you have an exclusive right for 120 days. If you don't do it 120 days, a creditor can file the plan for you, unless it's up 5 Chapter 11, because then only the debtor can submit a plan. So we decide what we're filing or what we're proposing, but then we have to get it agreed upon, and negotiated with everybody. Otherwise, people are casting votes, and if someone casts a bad faith vote, we're trying to get the vote knocked out. So and sometimes you ask the court to override a vote, called a cram down. So ultimately the court will decide, but the court can only decide if there's votes, it's confirmed. And the court's fine. I mean, the court is a court to resolve disputes. They're not rolling up their hands saying, here's what it should be, right? They're just trying to get the parties together. If there's not enough votes, it's not confirmed unless I'm then try to knock votes out. Then the court is then going to decide, are we readjusting the vote? It can happen. I had one 6 months ago, didn't have enough votes, but I knew I did, but nobody voted.
Oh.
Even the creditor, that was the main creditor. So I worked with the U.S. trustee and took 2 continuances. I'm like, are you going to file? You got to file yes. we'll get you paid. You know what I'm saying? So, because sometimes like the lawyers for the banks, I'm like, well, we're not voting against it, but we're not voting for it because they don't want to be. I don't know what they're talking about. You vote for it or vote against it. Voting against it, tell me why. Let's fix it, right? Or if it's really just like no way, different story. But when you just don't vote, you're not helping. That doesn't count because when I do the ballot tally, I don't have the vote. And in this case, there's only a couple of creditors, and I didn't have I needed another vote. So I actually got 2 more votes. So I started working the phones again. Even some credit cards. This was an individual one. Got some of the credit cards. They're going to get paid. It was a minor. That wasn't why they filed the case. Got a couple to file their ballot. You know what I'm saying? So, and the judge is like laughing because he's just like, this is obviously should be confirmed. And obviously the money is there. And obviously the bank, it's in everyone's interest. But the court was like, I can't confirm it because the code says you got to have votes. So even the U.S. trustee is like, well, why don't we just have a continuum and see if we get some votes? You know what I'm saying? So they did. And we got
Evan,
the vote.
we've got a few minutes. tell people that once they secure your services, they no longer have to talk to their creditors, do they?
That's a good point. Correct. So once you retain us, anybody calls you, you have them call me. We'll call our firm, right? I give a lot of my clients a direct line, but that's not the line you give to the creditors, please. Right? You give the creditors the main phone number.
Yes.
And the creditors, by the way, I mean, they're not, they call, right? Are you really retained? Are you still retained?
Right.
Are you filing? When are you going to file? I had a creditor call 2 days ago. That case was dismissed a couple months ago. I had some other creditors called another month ago. That case was dismissed like 3 years ago.
How come they didn't know that, Kevin?
Because they don't know. They don't want to violate the automatic stay. They could go on Pacer and look, but I guess they didn't look themselves. So they're just calling to verify, because on their record say, then they don't violate the federal law, the Fear of Debt Collection Practices Act, something like that, or discharge violation or automatic stay violation. So, on some of these, see, people sometimes hire you, then, they're not giving you documents, and then they're dragging their feet. Oh, no one's calling. Everybody went away. Nobody went away because of us. They're not bothering you, even though we didn't.
Right, exactly.
And as soon as you then say you don't want to go through with it, they call. They say, "I'm no longer representing Steve." Call Steve. I mean, and they start
think
calling.
about that.
The calls start coming.
You put all that pressure on Kevin. He takes it off your shoulders. Kevin, how do people reach you?
Okay, Kevin Benjamin, Benjamin Legal Services, which is benjaminlaw.com, 312-853-3100, 312-853-3100. Email attorneys, plural, at benjaminlaw.com. Well, let's go to the website. There's phone numbers, and you could even on the website, there's a calendar link. You could actually make an appointment by yourself. You can fill out a form and have me contact you, whatever you want to do. I'm saying. But if you want to call me, 312-853-3100, or just go to benjaminlaw.com.
And Kevin's with us every month. Kevin, thank you so much. You always have such great information, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Take care.
That's attorney Kevin Benjamin, great bankruptcy attorney. Hey, that's it for us today. We'll be back again with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.